Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 2022 edition of the Rotary E-Club of Southeast USA and Caribbean Zoom meeting. I'm President Alicia Bosdorf-Miller, and I see some new faces, and I see our two guests, well, three guests actually are on our speakers. You could even make that four. Anyway, we'll have a couple of people joining us shortly, but we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a really good meeting this evening. We've got two presenters or two programs to speak. We've got Bertie Dan and her son Thomas Yarns, who own an online printing company, t-shirt printing company. And if you notice, they're wearing t-shirts that sort of look like this in the front. There you go. And this has been an ongoing project with Bertie and Thomas. Finally, we connected with James Williams of the Rotary Club of Punta Gorda, and them and Will Miller and myself. It's taken us quite a bit of time, but we managed to successfully start and get underway t-shirt fundraiser. And I'm going to have Bertie just in a minute, and Thomas and James talk more about the fundraiser. We also have a featured speaker, Dr. Debra Lowe, directly, well, right now she's in Georgia, but she's from Rotary International, and she's going to talk to us about an aspect of the Rotary Foundation. And speaking of which, I sent one pin out, and I'm going to send another pin out. I want to congratulate Andy Hammond for his Paul Harris +6 award, and Vince Cataro, I have inbox in hand ready to send out tomorrow his Paul Harris +8. And so congratulations to both of you real quick. As we go further in the meeting, I'm actually going to have past district governor Vince Cataro actually further introduce our speaker, Debra Lowe. So without further ado, and as they say, what's an ado, I'm actually going to go ahead and hand the meeting over to Bertie, Thomas, and James, and have them talk to you about our Rotary E-Club and Club of Punta Gorda fundraiser for Ukraine.
Well, I'm going to start off. I'm Bertie, and this project for me and for our club started, I would say, more than 6 months ago. I'm just going to say that it was a challenge more than I could ever imagine. I remember when I told Alicia I wanted to do a fundraiser, she said, basically, you're opening up a can of worms here, girl. And I tell you, those worms are wiggly. It was a long process. In fact, I almost gave up on it because I was going around in circles. And then I got this aha text or message or email for me to get a hold of James Williams, because James Williams is already working on fundraising for Ukraine, and he has all the connections. So I talked with James. You're going to hear from him in just a minute, but he is absolutely wonderful. And if you go on his website, you will see that they are very proactive on raising money for Ukraine. They have a direct contact in Poland that takes trucks to Ukraine with medical supplies, etc. And I'll let him explain. So the beauty of this whole thing is the t-shirts. The t-shirts, this is an unusual fundraiser as far as I can see, because I've been doing a lot of learning about Rotary in this past year and a half, almost 2 years. And I see that the fundraising goes in bike rides and festivals, and there's all kinds of fundraisers, but I've never seen a t-shirt fundraiser. And I'm so happy that the business that my son and I have is that we actually have a fundraising program that's designed for this particular project. I got the okay from Rotary International and that it was good to use this t-shirt. All our I's are dotted and all our T's are crossed. The t-shirts are absolutely beautiful. They're spun cotton. They fit well, as you can see. I don't know if you can see the design. And then on the back, I don't know if you can see, but the back we have, what's beautiful is that we have the large Rotary logo on there. And then under that, we have the two clubs that are actually doing the fundraiser. So, and what's very interesting about this is I wore my shirt to the dog park and somebody noticed my shirt and they said, "I love your shirt. What is the Rotary?" And I explained to them what the Rotary was. Then they were so excited and they want to learn more and they want to join. So this t-shirt serves more than just the fundraising for Ukraine, but it also does show our service and what the Rotary Club does. Now, we were going to start officially to get this moving in October, but then IN came. And we know exactly where all the efforts needed to be at that time. So IN is basically taking all of our attention. And I spoke with James this morning, and we both agreed that we should go ahead and continue on in the dribbles that we're doing. But one, we're ready to kick this off, and we hope to do it on December 1st is the big push. That's when we're going to work together, hopefully, and reach out to as many people as we can to reach out. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be in our district. They can be anywhere in the United States or in the world. So we can send them anywhere. And it's a joint effort, which makes it really beautiful. The fact that we have two different clubs, two different districts, and we're able to coordinate this beautiful program. So I'm going to let James talk a little bit about where the money is going. $10 for every shirt that is purchased is going toward this fund. $10, which is a lot of money. If you sell a lot of t-shirts, we have a lot of money. Yeah. And that money is going to go directly into the hands of the people who are working the Rotary Club in Ukraine. So James, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to explain a little bit about where the money is going and how it's going to be funded and funneled into Ukraine and all the wonderful things you've done. Thank you, James. Glad to meet you finally.
It's nice to see you in person.
Yeah, to see you.
Talked on the phone many times.
Yes.
And Tom, nice to meet you too.
It's a pleasure to meet you, James, as well.
Let me just a little background. When the Russians invaded Ukraine in February, I think it was February, the end of February, I was, like so many other people, deeply shocked by it. And as I watched a little more on the television and saw the tragic of all these refugees beginning to pour out of Ukraine and what they were doing, I thought there's got to be something that Rotary can do about this. And I thought, I was told a long time ago that when I joined Rotary that most ideas come from individual Rotarians. Whether I don't want to say mine was a good idea, but I said, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to raise some money. But I said, I need somebody to get the money to. And so I went on to my Rotary and I looked up Poland and clubs in Poland. And I found sort of, a dot on the map. And I found Czechova, Poland, which is about 80 miles from the Ukrainian border. And I decided to write the president, Wojtek Janikowski. I wrote him an email and said, I'd like to raise money to help refugees that are pouring into Poland. Is your club involved? Would you be willing to work with me? And I got a very open-armed letter back from him saying, yes, we have refugees already in our community and we are raising money for refugees and we're sending it also into Poland or into Ukraine. So in March, I started raising money, and a long story short, through the months of March through August into September, my club has raised $55,000. Not just the club, but the community and other clubs in our district have contributed to that. Another club in our district heard about what I was doing, and their president-elect called me and said, we want to do something too. And that club on Anna Maria Island has subsequently raised $50,000. And I connected with clubs in New England and other parts of the United States. And I would say that guessing that what we started in our club has triggered about $200,000 to $250,000 in donations going to Ukraine. Our district also wrote a grant for a disaster relief, and we got that grant. And against my advice, they decided to pack meals here in the United States and to buy water purifiers here in the United States and ship them to Ukraine. Well, they're still not in Ukraine, and we did that back in August. So what I've found is the best thing is I send money to the Rotary Club of Czechova, Poland. They go out and purchase all of the things that are needed: medical supplies, surgical equipment, food, clothing, thermal underwear. Lately is one of the things. We just shipped a whole bunch of thermal underwear into Ukraine, and they work directly with 2 or 3 other Rotary clubs in Ukraine, and they also work with hospitals in Ukraine. And so they purchase the materials with the money we send. They deliver it into Ukraine. They've delivered it to Kherson, to Mykolaiv, to Kharkiv, to Lviv, which is close on the western border, of course, and also to Kiev. I can't think of the capital. So a lot of different places, and they send me. I get receipts for what has been purchased, so I have itemized receipts, and I know where the money's going precisely, and I can report that back to my club and to our donors. And we maintain, it's a little behind now, I need to update it, but we maintain a web page on our club website of Ukraine donations. And in fact, you can go to punagordarotary.org/news, and you can find that website and see what is going on. So that's the project. And actually, before Bertie got my name, 2 or 3 people had said, well, why aren't you selling t-shirts? And I thought, oh my God,
Did they really?
that's just, I don't think we can do that. The most effective thing, I think, is if we can just raise the money and send the cash. That's what they know they need. Well, when Bertie called, I said, well, if your club is doing this and you want to do that, I have a way. You could take the $10 per t-shirt and send it to our club foundation, and we will then forward it to Poland. And it becomes a sort of joint effort. It's your project, and I'm just there to help. I don't want to take credit for it, although Bertie's nice enough to give us credit on the back of the t-shirt, but the whole idea is to get as much aid as possible. Of course, what's happened with our club right now is that Hurricane Ian hit our district pretty badly. We're still cleaning out, mucking and gucking out houses in Inglewood and Northport and in Fort Myers and so forth. So our attention, our whole district and all our clubs' attentions have been focused on that. And now, God, we got another storm coming in this Thursday too. Let's hope that just skims us. At any rate, I've said to Bertie, we ought not to pile this on right now. That's our clubs are not going to be interested. Our district's not going to be much interested in it. And they're pushing for hurricane relief. So why don't we try and start something around the 1st of December? That would be a good time. It's also a chance where we can send out a thing saying, here are wonderful gifts you can give to people for the holidays, to stand for other people. You know, I think we can get a good social media campaign going the 1st of December. And I'll be working with Bertie more in the next 2 weeks or so before December comes to get that sort of laid out to what we can do. And if you do it as well through your club and
Yes.
your contacts and your district, we can do it through our zone. There's no reason in the world the zone can't pick it up. So I think we can get a lot of this out to Rotarians. So that's my story, and I've said enough. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, James.
James.
And Tom, do you want to give a little bit of your insight? I know that you've done fundraisers before and you understand the whole concept about how this works the best. If you want to just give us give everybody a briefing on how you feel this should be done, or any comments, I appreciate it.
I am going to immediately defer my wisdom to James and to the Rotary Club. What I've heard so far is just overwhelming. And first and foremost, I really just want to thank you for your support for the storm that hit our hometown and of course your area. Our town got devastated and it's a map-changing event. So obviously all attention needs to be focused where it is. And I think the timing is auspicious, and it's, it's always horrible, but it happened. But it's a natural disaster, and by chance our area got affected, and we'll get through this. And hopefully by the grace of God, we'll never experience anything like that again. But to James and to the Ukrainian effort, I was as well deeply affected by what I saw in February. And I think everyone may have seen the little old lady that told a Russian soldier to put sunflower seeds in his pocket. And you can Google for the rest of that story, but it moved me, it hit me pretty hard. And it was the day that I learned what the sunflower was for the national flower of Ukraine. And and I think the idea of that t-shirt, or, oh my God, all I got for Christmas was this lousy t-shirt. Well, in this industry, it's the humble t-shirt. It's one of the most powerful visual communications tools in the world. And to be quite frankly honest, not many of us knew the sunflower was the Ukrainian national flower. So I started to conceive the idea of a design. And as artists go, the subjective nature of a design, there are good ones and there are not so good ones, but everyone, has their opinion. So I started putting my feelers out and asking folks, in every demographic, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And people really started to love this design. It's a simple one, and it's really just a message. And I think my little business is just a little business here in the United States. Who are we? We are a tiny little business that no one even knows, but Rotary International, you guys are an international juggernaut, and you are a group of philanthropists, and you are people that really do know how to pay it forward. So to be latched on to this group is really an honor for me. For my mom to have brought it to your attention, I was as nervous as you could be, and to find out that we were officially, recognized by Rotary and that we did dot our I's and cross our T's and everything is legitimate, it just made me want to get this underway. So, excuse me. the bottom line is I don't have anything more to say except for that the platform that I built and that we built makes it absolutely easy to make this go viral. You have the e-club, okay? The social platforms that James was talking about. I can't wait to hear your ideas. But this certainly cannot be done by just a couple of us. There does need to be a concerted kind of a zeitgeist, I'd say, you know, in the idea that if we all got together, if we shared this and we did make a concerted effort in this campaign, that we could have an army of sunflower power, okay? And, you know, I'm not a wealthy person that can write $1 million check to the cause, but I have the tools and the equipment, and my mom and I, we can donate our resources to get this thing to fruition. But really it's not this package, it's you guys, and you're the magic. And you know, just by sharing this link and wearing the shirt, you'll be out in your community, and through 6 degrees of separation, there's going to be people that are really going to take this and run with it. If it's a local business owner that maybe would buy these shirts and have their employees wear the shirts, and you know, perhaps restaurants would put a little table tent up on their tables, or you know, there's just so many different ways to get this word out. Through a QR code and a simple snap of your phone, you could be right there buying a shirt or a hoodie or a long sleeve. I made sure to cover all the ground as far as, you know, being able to offer something for everyone. So there's even shirts for the kids. And so, yes, they're great stocking stuffers. And yes, I want to see 20,000 sold, and 20,000 sold is 200,000 raised. Why can't we do that? So, you know.
Thank you,
that's
Pam.
it. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions real quick? Okay. All right, well, thank you all.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank
effort.
you.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
And please forgive me, but if I'm going to excuse myself. I'm
Time
so
to do a
glad to
lap.
have been able to meet you all, and
We'll be talking, James,
okay,
and I'm
Thank
going
you
to
so
try to
much.
make it to one of your meetings real soon.
I'll be in touch with you with a date.
Okay, okay.
Pleasure to meet
Bye-bye.
you, James. Thank you.
Evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
Thank you, everybody.
coming. Bye.
Okay, great. So next up, let's see, where is, oh, and I think he just lost the connection. Oh, no, there he is. It's always so fun to see where you can find who on the screen. PDG Vince Cataro, would you be so kind as to formally introduce our featured speaker this evening?
Be my pleasure. Our speaker is Debra Lowe, and I think I met Debra more than a decade ago, and it's been a pleasure knowing Debra all these years in talking Rotary and listening to all the wonderful things that she's done. She joined the Rotary Foundation in 2009 as the first major gifts officer on the staff of the Rotary Foundation that lived within their assigned zone. She covers Zone 34, which consists of our 14 districts, 3 in Georgia, 8 in Florida, and 3 in the Caribbean. And the focus of her position is to enable Rotarians as well as non-Rotarians to fulfill their philanthropic goals of supporting our foundation with a single gift or a commitment of $10,000 or greater to the annual fund, area focus, endowment fund, Polio Plus, or Rotary Peace Centers. In addition to being a staff member, Debra is an active Rotarian, and she's been a Rotarian for almost 20 years. She served as president of the Rotary Club of Kissimmee Bay in Florida from 2005 to 6, and is currently the president-elect of the Rotary Club of Lake Chatouche in North Georgia. For 3 years, from 2015 to 16, Debra joined our General Secretary of Rotary International, John Huco, and Rotary colleagues from around the world to participate in the Miles to End Polio in conjunction with the 106-mile El Tour de Tucson bicycle ride. Through the support of Rotarians and the 2-to-1 match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the team raised more than $30 million towards our goal of a polio-free world. Debra, as I said, lives in North Georgia, along with her yellow lab, Luna. In addition to community service through Rotary, she enjoys outdoor adventures, gardening, cycling, and the culinary and creative arts. And it's my pleasure to introduce not only a fine Rotarian, but a good friend, Debra Lowe.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you all.
let's see, Alicia and I tested this and it worked. So let's see if we can do it again. Here we go. Is that working? Are we good? Okay, thanks, Alicia. So I created this presentation. Last week I was in Jacksonville. And I spoke to the West Jacksonville Club there. And so when I created this, it's kind of like the Rotary 101 with some updates. But now I'm sitting in the presence of 4 past district governors, all of whom I know. And so what a lovely surprise. So I feel like I'll kind of modify this a little bit so it's not quite so basic. But I want to defer for a minute from what I was going to talk about because of just the great presentation. I'm glad I came before mine about this incredible fundraiser that y'all are involved in. And I will talk a bit about Rotary's response to Ukraine, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that so many clubs around the world really, in addition to giving to the Rotary Foundation, have and continue to find ways to raise funds to help deal with this ongoing humanitarian crisis. I don't think any of us thought that this far along we would still be hearing this dreadful news every day of what's happening. And just a couple of suggestions. It could be if y'all are active on Facebook, there's the Zones 3334 Facebook page. You might want to look into going on that page and posting something about this. It's pretty far reaching on there, not just Rotarians in our 2 zones. And then I don't know if it'll work or not. And if you're interested, I can send some information to Alicia. But I don't know if the Raise for Rotary platform on Facebook might be a way for you to go ahead and promote this. But just putting it out there before I get started. And I just thought this was a fabulous fundraiser. And if I can help give you some more suggestions on how to promote this, let me know. But that just came to mind while I was listening to the presentation. So here we are in Foundation Month. So happy Rotary Foundation Month to everyone. And again, it's just really a pleasure to be here with this e-club. It's been a while since I've visited and spoken to an e-club. And so I'm very happy to be here this evening. And I want to thank also all of you for what you accomplished last year in your support of our Rotary Foundation. In difficult times, Rotarians, as we know, like you, will rise to the occasion. The last couple of years during the pandemic have been no different. I actually have just started traveling again after almost 3 years, my colleagues and myself. And during this time, we thought, well, at first we all thought, what's going to happen to Rotary? How are clubs going to meet? I mean, that's the heartbeat of who we are, is the fellowship. And before I knew it, we were all on Zoom. And I don't think we've missed a beat. And certainly support of the Rotary Foundation has not diminished. In fact, last year, because of you, we had a record year in giving. $410 million contributed to our Rotary Foundation. And I thank all of you for making that possible. And let's see, why are we not advancing? All right, Alicia, do you have it? Oh, there we go. Simple click. Okay, so this is obviously our Rotary Foundation's mission statement. And again, because I know that a lot of you are on there who are very knowledgeable about the foundation, I want to talk a bit more, about the impact that your work and your contributions to the foundation have. And certainly, thinking about what's happened in, I'll refer to it as District 6960, but of course that's Lee County. What's happened with this hurricane and how all of you have just risen to help your fellow Rotarians, really speaks to the heart of who we are. But last week, while I was on my Rotary trip, I met with a woman who's only been in Rotary for 4 years. And last year, she made a gift to the foundation, new Rotarian, that immediately had her recognized as an Arch Clump Society member. And for those of you who don't know, Arch Clump Society members are those individuals who have contributed a minimum of $250,000 outright to our Rotary Foundation. We have just over 1,000 worldwide. So it is a very elite group. And usually it'll take, you hear stories of Arch Clump Society members who've been in Rotary, 20, 30, 40 years. Here's somebody who's only been in Rotary at the time she made her gift, 3 years. And the reason I met with her is because she wanted to match what she's done with a gift to our Legacy Society, which is a commitment in her estate plans, a very significant gift. And when I just was, so taken aback and asked her, what is it that has really motivated you? She said that, she had been looking for years for an organization that she felt she could trust, that was doing good in the world, and that she could also connect with on a daily basis locally in the community. And she said she gives to other organizations, and she said there's been no other organization until she was invited to attend a Rotary Club meeting that has matched who we are. And so I want to share that because you never know who you might invite to Rotary who will get incredibly engaged and really find their calling, but also just to speak of the impact that we have, every day on people who perhaps didn't really know about us. So our foundation, as you know, is carefully overseen by your fellow Rotarians, our trustees. They ensure that your gifts are invested and spent wisely. So it's the trustees that make these decisions. And the generosity of all of you and the way your funds are managed by the foundation has not gone unnoticed. And for the 14th consecutive year, our Rotary Foundation has received a 4-star rating by Charity Navigator. And for those of you who are not familiar with Charity Navigator, this is an independent evaluator of charities throughout the United States. So you can Google Charity Navigator, go in there, you can look at Rotary's rankings and how we're evaluated, and every other organization that you either support or are considering supporting. And a lot of this is based upon the financial health of the organization and the commitment to accountability, how transparent an organization is to its donors on how you spend your money. And also a big part of that is the ratio of what amount of admin costs are coming out of your gifts. So something we should all be extremely proud of, and it really speaks to who we are as an organization. So I'll go through the annual fund quickly because I know you're all familiar with it. This is really what I refer to as the checking account of our Rotary Foundation. This is what enables the district projects that are carried out and the international projects that you develop and carry out to actually happen. So you know that you can support the annual fund, and then in 3 years, the investments of your gift come back to the district. And at the end, I want to hear a little bit more about how you all work together as an e-club to give to the annual fund and how that comes back. So I'll table that for now, but I'm kind of curious and having a conversation about that, just about how an e-fund would work. But this is actually a photo of a grant recipient. This is Gabriela, and she's from Honduras. And through a grant that was made possible by the Rotary clubs in Honduras, partnering with clubs in the United States, she was given a training and a microloan that enabled her to expand her sewing business so that she could support her family. And part of the microloans is that it also provides business skills training. We've discovered that microloans are not just something that are done through the Rotary Foundation. There's a lot of organizations that do them. And what's been statistically proven is if an entrepreneur receives a microloan but does not receive business training on how to be a smart business person, the business has about a 75 to 90% failure rate because they just don't understand the logistics of running and building a business. And part of what happens with our microloans is that the Rotarians who are in country will actually work with these entrepreneurs to help give them those skills to succeed. So you are all, of course, familiar with our now 7 areas of focus now that we have the environment. And I'll backtrack a little bit about this. I was asked an interesting question after I finished my presentation at the West Jacksonville Club. And the person asked me, what in my experience has been the evolution of Rotary and the Rotary Foundation. And of course, we all know that the Rotary Foundation started with a gift of $26.50 made back in 1905. When Paul Harris passed away, he had asked Rotarians to give in his memory, and that really helped to build our endowment fund up. But when I started with the foundation 13 years ago, it'll be 14 years in January, as a gift officer, major gift officer, I had the following that I could talk with you about in ways of making gifts. You could give, of course, to Polio Plus. You could give to the endowment fund, you could give to annual fund share. We had the Rotary Peace Centers that came along shortly thereafter. And you could give to an approved global grant, which was at the time matched 50 cents on the dollar. And then within the endowment fund, you could direct your gift to either the World Fund, which is the general pool, of course, to share, where a portion would come back of that realized bequest in the fund in the form of DDF, or something called the Children's Fund, which no longer exists. And that was it. And so in the 13 years that I've been on board, and those of you who have been, of course, in Rotary for some time, think about how our organization has really grown with the times. And I always said we were a donor-driven organization because you get to decide how your gifts to the foundation are used through district and global grants. This has been the evolution of our organization. Rotary looked at and listened to, where are these grants going? What projects are important to you? What needs are you addressing around the world? And they developed the 6 areas of focus. But what they also discovered was nearly every grant that was being approved and carried out for years had some sort of an environmental component to it. Certainly, if you looked at water and sanitation, right there, you're going to have that environmental component. Even something as simple as disease prevention and treatment. You're working to maybe address some sort of need in the community that is related to environmental impact. We did basic education and literacy projects that were helping to provide sanitation to a school so that young girls could go to school. So it was all intertwined. So this was all this is what you're looking at, these 7 areas of focus, the expansion on how you can support our endowment fund. This was all a result of how you are using the gifts that are made to the Rotary Foundation. And when I hadn't really thought about it until this Rotarian posed that question, I kind of thought about how my career has evolved and how I've been able to have really meaningful conversations with all of you based on how our foundation has really changed and evolved with the times. So although my role is major gift officer, so I do work with people who have an interest in making a single gift of $10,000 or greater. I do a lot of work with plan giving and bequests. I'll talk a little bit more than that about that. I want to really just stress that every gift to our Rotary Foundation has an impact. Be it if you're an E-Ray member, if you're giving something to the foundation, sustaining member, $100 a year, a Paul Harris Society member, every gift to the Rotary Foundation does good in the world. The $410 million that was contributed last year, a great portion of that, of course, was major gifts, but not all of it. It's Rotarians who just give something all the time. And not every Rotarian gives and not every club gives. So imagine the impact that we will have if every Rotarian around the world supports our Rotary Foundation. And a lot of times it's really just sharing, what is it that we do? What is the impact that we do? I have Rotarians who I talk to who don't know that we have 7 areas of focus. So I look to all of you to kind of be the advocates and basically the public relations people of our Rotary Foundation. And it goes back to the t-shirts and, somebody asking, what is Rotary? We hear that all the time. So every gift is important. And I thank you for that. So when I think about impact, this slide, what you're looking at is, this is global grant funding. So this is not dollars contributed. This is the dollars that were awarded. So between Rotary years 2014 and this just completed Rotary year, This is, and this Rotary year, actually, sorry about that. This Rotary year, up until this slide was produced probably about 3 months ago. This shows the amount of dollars that have been given out in grants to carry out projects around the world. And you'll see that disease prevention and treatment has received the biggest outpouring of support. And I just think about the impact that these grants are having. This slide, again, from Rotary years 2014 to the current Rotary year, is showing the regions by region where these grants are actually being awarded. And I think it's pretty neat to see the impact that you're having and where the greatest areas of need are. So I won't read this slide to you, but it's some great grant statistics just for this 21-22 Rotary year. So this is, almost in real time of what's been given out. And a few highlights I want to show that aren't on this slide. By June 30th of this year, we approved 145 Rotary scholarships. We approved 33 environmental grants. So we are actually awarding grants in the area of focus for the environment. And 22 of those grants are actually for humanitarian purposes. So just very interesting. And if anyone's interested, I can forward documents that kind of state for each area of focus what kind of grants are supported. And this was it took a long time for the environment area of focus to actually be rolled out, because it was looking at what were we going to do in the way of rewarding grants. And disease prevention and treatment remains the highest area that we're funding in the areas of focus. So it's very timely that I'm glad that, again, that we had our presenters earlier to talk about their fundraiser, because Rotary's response to Ukraine was made possible because of all of you. I think probably all of you are familiar with our disaster response fund and the fact that Rotary is not in the business of disaster response. We are in the business of carrying out sustainable projects that would help rebuild a community after all the first responders leave, when it's time to put the infrastructure back together after a natural disaster. And so that's how the Disaster Response Fund was developed. We know a lot of, and it happened with the most recent hurricane. Clubs and districts will develop their own, usually a donor advised fund or their own fund within their district foundation to respond to crises around the world. And by having a disaster response fund, Rotarians could give to Rotary, directed to this disaster response fund, receive major donor recognition, and also have those funds available so that Rotarians and districts can write grants to address needs. And they were turned around very quickly. And so this was almost like a pass-through fund. During COVID, it was decided quickly that we needed to pivot that fund so that Rotarians could respond to the COVID crisis. And so the fund was pivoted for an amount of time where you were able to apply for grants that you could use to provide. A lot of these grants were providing food for food banks. There was, I think probably all of you know too, that there was a tremendous need for support of food banks with so many people that were out of work. Children weren't going to school and getting their meals every day, getting their free and reduced lunches. They weren't getting the backpacks at the end of the week to take home with food. So a lot of these grants were around the world were used to address food insecurity. They were also, of course, used to purchase ventilators and many other of the items that were needed to help save lives. And the good thing about it was so many of these grants were awarded, and the to the point about buying things stateside and then trying to ship them to another country never bodes well. So these grants made it possible for everything to be purchased in country. We never thought that we would receive from Rotarians like you $15 million from the period between March, it was March to April. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. In a short amount of time, we received $15 million to this fund earmarked for Ukraine relief. And we thought, well, we'll do this and we'll raise, a small amount of money. But here we are these are the grants that have been awarded so far. And they're awarded mainly to countries around Ukraine and in Ukraine that are able to get in there. They know what the needs are, and they're able to immediately provide the relief that they need. It was a lot of clothing, food, transportation, temporary housing. And we still have about $3.9 million. That number is probably less because we turn these grants around very quickly. So there's about less than $3.9 million in the fund right now, and it will be fully expended by the end of the calendar year. There's some conversations going on about what's next, because there's going to be a tremendous need for resettling. As you know, many of the refugees who are essentially going to have to rebuild their lives somewhere else. So normally when I talk about polio, I would have the End Polio Now logo on the screen, but I thought this was a more powerful image. This shows a frontline worker with a mother immunizing a child and doing the purple pinky that we're all very familiar with. And this really says it all, because it is these frontline workers who have and continue to get us to where we are today. And of course, you know, NIDs still continue, National Immunization Days, try not to talk in acronyms, where these immunizations are still vital to the success of getting us to a polio-free world. But polio anywhere is a threat everywhere. And I don't think any of us ever imagined, even though we knew Rotary was a plane ride away, that in today's news, recent news, we would hear that there was a case of polio detected first in London through an environmental sample, a confirmed case in upstate New York, samples discovered in sewage, and then also in environmental samples in Israel. And interestingly enough, these three cases and these environmental samples are all genetically linked. So the person or persons traveled through these three areas, and with it, as they were unvaccinated, polio went with them. So the CDC did confirm this case in July of 2022 on an unvaccinated individual from Rockland County, New York. And it was also confirmed in London. So it really just drives home the point that we have to continue our fight and continue to encourage vaccination around the world. So this slide shows polio cases, and we were doing very good 2016 to 2018, and then came the pandemic, 2019 and 20. When all vaccinations were paused, of course. 2020, there was actually a drop, in part because people were in lockdown. Nobody was really traveling, so it really diminished the ability for the disease to be transmitted. 2021, we were able to resume vaccinations, and you immediately saw, you know, a huge plummet in numbers. So what's happening now in 2022, where we're back to 29 cases? We're having a couple of resurgences. We had 20 cases in Pakistan, 2 in Afghanistan, and 7 in Mozambique. And we just continue to redouble our efforts. Some of this is just coming out of COVID lockdown, where people are beginning to get out, they're beginning to travel more within these borders, but it just speaks to the need to continue doing what we're doing. But if you go back to 2016, 2017, 2018, we're almost kind of on par. You know, 2021 was really kind of an anomaly. So we continue to make good progress. So much of this is because of the infrastructure that we have in place, because of your gifts to Polio Plus. That's how we were able to very quickly address these environmental samples that were found in the 3 countries that recently had these cases. So I also want to talk a little bit about our Rotary Peace Centers, which is a program that is really fulfilling a vision of sustainable peace. We have 7 peace centers around the world, and we will soon be announcing our newest Rotary Peace Center, which will be developed in the Middle East. And this was made possible by a very, very generous gift from donors who wanted to, they weren't Rotarians, and they wanted to address issues of peace and providing education for peace builders. And it was through the connection of Rotary and the person who worked for their family foundation that this gift was made possible. So we're excited to make the announcement hopefully soon. I had asked the other day about it, but that's going to be our newest peace center that's in a region that is sorely in need of educating our peacemakers of tomorrow. I talked a little bit about our endowment fund, and this is really the way that anyone can leave a legacy of their love of Rotary for generations to come. Any gift to the endowment fund, be it a bequest society commitment, which is usually the most common way, something that is a gift that's left in one's estate plans, or it can be through life insurance, or a retirement plan, or it can be an outright gift. But what it does is that gift is invested, and it is the spendable earnings that will continue to support the good work of our Rotary Foundation. So I know we're running out of time, but I just want to show you that I know a lot of times you're just familiar with either doing a bequest society commitment or a cash gift, but there are many other ways that you can make a gift to the foundation, and some of them will provide income streams and tax benefits to you. So that's what I do in my role, and I'm always happy to talk with any of you about a way that you can support our foundation. So with that, I want to say again, thank you so much for having me this evening on Zoom to be with all of you. And it was just a nice surprise to see so many familiar faces. And I hope you found this interesting. Here's my contact information if there's any questions or anything that I can provide to you. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and turn this back over to Alicia.
Thank you so much, Debra. That was awesome. Before I go any further, are there any questions?
Just one quick one. Deborah, how's Luna like the great outdoors?
Luna is living her best life here in the country. She's a happy girl. She's actually in her bed snoring as we speak, but she's a happy girl. Thank you for asking.
I have a question, Deborah. In light of what you talked about and what we've read about, the cases that were uncovered, in New York, London, and I think you said Israel.
Yeah.
Is the foundation doing anything differently because of those cases? Is any strategic goal been amended, changed, added?
Nothing specific has been amended other than, we just rely on all of you to continue to be, not only financially support Polio Plus, but really be advocates. And, certainly it was World Polio Day is a great time for all of us to promote Polio Plus. And there were some really neat fundraisers that have been carried out. But I think we need to talk about it all the time. And I always get a response when I wear an End Polio Now pin, because people are like, they used to be, what do you mean, polio? We don't have polio. Now they're like, oh, wait, I saw something on the news about that. I've had people say that to me. Oh, wait, I saw something on the news about that. So that's to me is just, we have to continue advocating for it.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just follow up with a quick question. And it's a little bit of a touchy subject. It's regarding polio, but it's a little bit touchy. And every time I'm at a seminar, a zone institute, a workshop, listening to a guest speaker, you hear some rumblings about it. When I was a district governor elect, and we were at the International Assembly in San Diego back in 2009, it was mentioned in our classes that we had, and that was the year that Gates decided to give 250, or it was actually more than 250. And he came, and of course, a big press conference and big speech and a whole bit. there were people in the classrooms that talked about polio plus fatigue. When is this going to end? We started in '86 and so forth. Here we are 13 years later. Do you hear that from Rotarians?
Oh,
When are
absolutely.
we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I hear, there's certainly fatigue, and that's the other reason why I showed the image of a frontline worker, because if you think we're tired of hearing it stateside, imagine these poor polio workers who have to continue, are continuously vaccinating children.
Yeah.
And I think the fatigue issue, I think people got a wake-up call when this case stateside and in London was discovered, because I think we hear, yeah, polio, when are we going to stop? We need to just, I've had people say to me, we should just cut our losses and leave it where it's at. Well, this shows that we can't. And I think it's been a wake-up call, and I've not heard people challenging me about that.
Mhm. Yeah, I've not heard any Rotarians challenge it. It's more expressing their frustration, and it's like, when is this going to end, and when are we going to move on to something else? But everybody knows in the back of their mind, we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, and this proves it. It's a
Yeah.
sad, it took something really kind of terrifying, quite frankly, to kind of remind us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's definitely a sense of purpose. And, I've heard questions from other Rotarians, okay, when we do end polio, when it is in the books, now what's going to be the focus?
Yeah, I hear that. I hear, we need to tackle, XYZ. Anyone who has a passion is going to be, advocating for, okay, we need to start doing, this. And the reality of it is we're not even thinking about it. We're not even, you can't even begin to guess of what will we do. I urge you to think about all that money that's contributed, $50 million plus a year, that is given directly, to Polio Plus, which is a restricted fund. Think about what those dollars can do if they went to the annual fund, or they, went to areas of focus. That's a lot of money that will be funneled into other projects to address critical needs in the world. And so that's one way to look at it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, if my mute is off now. I'm from upstate New York originally, and so I'm familiar with the area where the polio has resurfaced. And I'll try to be delicate, like Vince was.
I know where you're going, I think.
This is a extremely conservative, religious, anti-vax area. And that's where you're finding the resurgence of some polio in the US.
Yes, unfortunately, you're right. And the sad thing is the polio vaccine has nothing to do with the COVID vaccine, but things are getting lumped together. And you're right, Raymond. That is a pocket where people are very resistant to vaccines. And we do what we do. It's
Yeah, Debra, I'd like to just make one comment, and that is when a number of years ago there was a major Ebola outbreak.
yes.
Many of the folks fighting that used polio's resources and our network that we had already set up to track, identify, immunize, et cetera. So that helped keep that becoming a pandemic. Additionally, when COVID kicked off, our networks were also to help
Yes.
in suppressing COVID across the globe. So we have done a lot of work, most of it unseen to the average Rotarian. And that's another reason the COVID and polio and many other diseases to come don't care if you're vaccinated or not.
And Will, thank you for that, because I didn't want to, like, I could do a whole presentation about polio, but you brought up two really important things, because all that infrastructure that was used, you know, being used to help us fight polio was pivoted, like you said, for Ebola and for COVID. And I experienced firsthand how it was used for Ebola, because I was, the CDC used to do like a Rotary Day where they would invite, you know, a certain group of Rotarians. And I was fortunate, because it's in Atlanta, to be able to go. And the one year when I went, they had kind of condensed the polio part of what they call the war room at the CDC, where they're monitoring everything. And they had condensed that down a bit because they were using the remainder of their resources to start tracking Ebola. So you brought up a really important part of the history of Polio Plus.
Great presentation, Deborah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so good to see everyone. I know we're running over a little bit. So if anyone has any questions after, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Yeah, and I have her email, and yeah, I'm glad that I was able to supply a nice little reunion for you.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
That is wonderful. All right. Well, anything else real quick before we close out with the things that Rotarians think, say, and do? Who would like to lead off?
Is it the truth?
Thank you.
Is it fair to
fair
all
to tell
concerned?
terms.
Will it
Build
build goodwill?
goodwill,
Better
better
friendships.
friendships.
Will it be
Will it be
beneficial
beneficial to all
all
concerned?
concerned?
Connected.
And let's make it fun. Why not? Okay, thanks again, Deborah. We will be in
Thank
touch.
you. It was a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to see everyone. Thank you for all you do. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
Joe. Hmm.
Okay, lovely board members. Let's take a couple minutes break, and we'll have a really quick BOD meeting and enjoy the rest of our evening, because Will and I have got a very, very, very early start for tomorrow. We've got to be at a hospital 45 minutes away at 5:30 tomorrow morning. So
Wow.
yeah. So we're going to take just about a 2-minute break,
Okay.
and we'll be right back.
And now,
Thank you for your
bye.
time.
Bye.
Bye.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, Dad.
Bye.